Prime once commanded more than £100 on eBay and created black markets in British schools. Today you can find those same bottles rotting in clearance bins for 31 pence. The viral tweet showing Prime marked "reduced to clear" got over 3 million views, with people asking, "Remember when people were paying about £100 a bottle?" This is Prime Hydration, Logan Paul and KSI's beverage empire that went from a $250 million success story to one of the most spectacular corporate collapses in recent memory. But here's what Logan Paul doesn't want you to know. Prime's downfall wasn't bad luck, market forces, or natural competition. It all traces back to one product launch decision in January 2023 that set off a chain reaction so devastating, it destroyed everything the duo had built. So what was that decision, and how did it trigger the complete implosion of what seemed like an unstoppable brand? Let's start at the peak. In 2022, Prime generated an absolutely staggering $250 million in retail sales, and this was their launch year. To put that in perspective, Gatorade, a brand that's been around for over 50 years, does about $6 billion annually. Prime hit roughly 4% of Gatorade's scale in 12 months. By early 2023, the founders were boasting the company was profitable and on track for $1.2 billion in sales. This wasn't just a drink, it was a cultural phenomenon. Kids were treating Prime bottles like contraband, reselling them at school for £10 each when they cost £2 in stores. Some entrepreneurial students were waking up early to queue outside stores, then flipping bottles for profit at school. On eBay, hundreds of bottles were selling for £12 to £15 each. That's a 500% markup. One seller even listed a single bottle for £1,000, probably as a stunt, but it showed just how insane the hype had become. Schools were forced to hold assemblies scolding children for extorting their peers. Some schools outright banned Prime drinks on campus just to stop the chaos. Meanwhile, Logan and KSI were living their best lives. Prime secured sponsorship deals with UFC as their official sports drink. They became Arsenal FC's official hydration partner. By mid-2023, they even replaced Gatorade as FC Barcelona's hydration sponsor. Think about that for a second. A year-old startup was muscling out Gatorade from one of the world's biggest football clubs. Arsenal's chief commercial officer said Prime was at the forefront of modern culture. And honestly, they weren't wrong. TikTok was flooded with Prime Hunt videos. Videos tagged #PrimeHydration had hundreds of millions of views, with users posting taste tests, store raids, and even comedy skits about the obsession. Logan Paul's WWE stunt at WrestleMania, where KSI appeared dressed as a giant Prime bottle and got slammed through a table, went viral across both wrestling and influencer circles. It was basically an outrageous Prime commercial that people watched willingly. Everything was working perfectly, too perfectly. Then came January 2023, and the decision that would doom everything. Prime launched their energy drink line. Now, on the surface, this seemed brilliant. They already had the sports drink market locked down with Prime Hydration. Energy drinks were a booming category. Same branding, same founders, same audience. Double the revenue, right? But here's where it gets sinister. Prime Energy contained 200 milligrams of caffeine per 12-ounce can. That's equal to 6 cans of Coke or nearly 2 Red Bulls. Pediatric health groups recommend no more than 100 milligrams daily for adolescents. Children under 12 shouldn't consume caffeine at all. The energy line was labelled 18+ on the cans. But here's the problem. The packaging similarity between Prime Hydration and Prime Energy was so close that parents were unknowingly buying the highly caffeinated energy drinks for their children. Same bright colours, same logo, same flavours, same influencers promoting both, same kids wanting both. Logan Paul would later defend this by saying,
"Our energy product says 18+ on the label. It's also marketed 18+ on every single social media we post that we do from the Prime page. And it's an industry standard amount of caffeine. It has 200 milligrams of caffeine, and that's nothing revolutionary or out of the ordinary. It's the same amount as Gatorade's Fast Twitch. It's the same amount as Celsius, and even less, 100 milligrams less than Bang Energy."
But compliance isn't the same as responsibility. And what Logan didn't anticipate was that this decision had just lit the fuse on the first domino. Quick pause. More than 90% of you guys have not subscribed to the channel, and I would really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button. I would love to grow our community and hit the 10k subscribers mark by the end of the year. I would be grateful if you came along for the ride. It motivates me to keep making these in-depth videos. Now let's get back to watching how one product launch decision destroyed a $250 million empire. The first domino, regulatory scrutiny. Within months, reports emerged of kids mixing up the energy and hydration versions. Parents thought they were buying the safer sports drink for their 8-year-olds. Instead, they were accidentally giving them the equivalent of 2 Red Bulls. By July 2023, US Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer publicly called on the FDA to investigate Prime.
Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is calling on the Food and Drug Administration to investigate the amount of caffeine in certain energy drinks.
This was remarkable. It's rare for a sitting senator to single out a specific beverage like this. But the alarm bells were ringing internationally too. Canada's regulatory agency stated Prime Energy should not be sold in Canada because its caffeine content exceeds their 180 milligram limit. Australia saw multiple state education departments ban Prime in schools. Some Australian locations banned Prime Energy sales to minors. Norway initially banned both Prime variants. The hydration version ran afoul of vitamin A fortification rules, while Energy far exceeded their caffeine limits. Slovenia banned Prime Energy because it contains L-theanine, an ingredient not approved in their non-alcoholic drinks. The American Medical Association had called for a ban on marketing high-caffeine drinks to under 18s, and Prime became the poster child for exactly what they were worried about. But regulatory pressure was just the first domino. The second domino, cultural backlash. The same network effect that made Prime cool was now working in reverse. Health experts were sounding alarms about Prime's absurd caffeine content for kids. Schools weren't just banning the energy version. They were banning Prime entirely because the branding confusion was too dangerous. Individual parents began expressing concerns about the brand. One anecdote described an 8-year-old telling classmates that boys at her school have Prime parties to see who can chug the most and feel all crazy. One alleged case involved a child who reportedly had a cardiac episode after consuming Prime Energy, though this remained unconfirmed, but the damage was done. The conversation around Prime shifted from hype to horror. Social media sentiment, which had been overwhelmingly positive in early 2022, became mixed and then negative. By mid-2023, Prime's Twitter mentions were as likely to include overrated or dangerous for kids as praise. Even on the RKSI subreddit, fans in 2023 were commenting about the decline as the novelty wore thin. The hype reversal was brutal. What had been a status symbol for kids was now a parental concern. What had been cool was becoming cringe. The final domino, supply chain disaster. See, Prime had made their projections during peak hype. They had locked into massive production contracts, expecting continued exponential growth. Prime's bottling partner Refresco sued them for $68 million, alleging Prime breached a contract requiring them to purchase a minimum 18.5 million cases over 3 years. Refresco claimed they had invested in a dedicated production line for Prime, but sales fell short, and Prime failed to order the committed volumes. In the lawsuit, Refresco's lawyers explicitly blamed the fading social media buzz for Prime's plummeting sales. The brand was a victim of its own hype cycle bust. Another lawsuit came from Agravana, an ingredient supplier, claiming Prime failed to pay for orders and had mounting unpaid invoices. The complaint described Prime experiencing cash flow issues by early 2024 and scrambling to secure credit lines to pay bills. But the most telling indicator was what happened in stores. Prime had gone from scarcity to oversupply almost overnight. By March 2024, viral photos showed major UK retailers dumping Prime in clearance bins for as little as 31 pence per bottle. The once precious drink was now literally cheaper than water in some locations. This represents the classic boom bust of a fad. Extreme excess demand flips into excess supply once the hype dies. Which brings us to the fourth and final domino, complete financial collapse. The numbers tell a brutal story. In the UK, Prime's second largest market, revenue fell off a cliff. £112.2 million in 2023 down to £32.8 million in 2024, a 71% drop. Net profit collapsed even more dramatically, from around £4.3 million in 2023 to just £312,000 in 2024, a 92% drop. In the US, numerator data showed sales down approximately 40% year over year by mid-2024. This wasn't just a slowdown, this was a complete collapse. Market research showed Prime's decline was due to a lack of new buyers, less frequent purchasing, and a drop in spending per unit from existing customers. In other words, once the hype cycle peaked, people tried it once and didn't come back. The product hadn't built genuine loyalty. It had just captured a moment. Prime's gross profit fell 85% in 2024, even more than revenue fell, implying heavy discounting and write-offs of expired inventory. Sports drinks have shelf lives of about a year, so all that overproduced inventory from peak hype was literally rotting in warehouses. Prime was forced to engage in heavy discounting to clear inventory, which destroyed their premium positioning. By 2024, stores that had once kept Prime behind counters like cigarettes were putting it on clearance next to expired energy bars. The transformation was complete. And then came the perfect storm moment when all 4 dominoes crashed simultaneously. The FDA had opened a review of Prime Energy following regulatory concerns. Cultural relevance was fading as the next viral trend captured kids' attention. The supply chain was imploding with lawsuits and unpaid bills piling up. Finances were crashing with massive losses and inventory write-downs. And to make matters worse, both founders faced their own controversies. Logan Paul's unrelated CryptoZoo NFT project was accused of scamming investors. KSI sparked outrage by using a racial slur in an April 2023 video. While these weren't directly about Prime, they tarnished the founder's image right when the brand needed their star power most. A supplier's lawsuit alleged that the fading popularity of the founders contributed to Prime's sales collapse. By 2025, Prime's UK entity announced a strategic review to transition from hypergrowth to sustainable presence. Corporates speak for "we're in panic mode." And that brings us to the final devastating image, those clearance bins. Prime bottles marked down to 31 pence, sitting next to expired snacks and discontinued sodas. The same drink that had kids fighting in hallways and parents queuing at dawn. The same drink that commanded £100 on eBay and created international headlines, now cheaper than a can of Coke, ignored by the very demographic that once worshipped it. So why was this downfall inevitable? The answer lies in understanding what Prime really was versus what it pretended to be. Prime positioned itself as a better-for-you sports drink, but nutritionally it wasn't significantly different from existing options. Nutrition experts noted Prime's added electrolytes and amino acids have minimal impact for most consumers, functioning more as marketing buzzwords. The real product wasn't the drink, it was the hype, and hype, by definition, is unsustainable. Industry analysts had warned that influencer-driven brands face the risk of becoming short-term viral fads unless the product serves a genuine consumer need beyond celebrity appeal. Influencer aura could spike initial sales, but longevity required intrinsic product value. It never built the broad loyalty that comes from consistent quality and genuine utility. It was a cultural moment masquerading as a beverage company, but the fatal energy drink decision accelerated everything. By blurring the lines between their kid-friendly sports drink and an adult stimulant product, they triggered a regulatory backlash that destroyed their reputation. They turned their core strength, appeal to young consumers, into their greatest liability. Parents who had grudgingly accepted expensive sports drinks drew the line at high-caffeine energy drinks marketed to their children. Schools that had tolerated the Prime craze banned it entirely rather than risk caffeine-related incidents. Regulators who might have ignored another sports drink opened reviews into what they saw as concerning marketing practices around minors. The energy drink launch wasn't just bad timing, it was a fundamental misunderstanding of their own brand equity. Prime's value came from being the safe rebellion for kids. It was expensive and hyped, but ultimately harmless. Parents could justify the cost because it was just a sports drink. The energy line destroyed that equilibrium by introducing genuine health risks while using the same youth-focused marketing. And once trust was broken, everything else collapsed. The supply chain disasters, financial implosion, and cultural backlash were all consequences of that original decision to prioritize growth over responsibility. This is why Prime's downfall was so satisfying to watch for many people. It was accountability in action. Two influencers who had built their careers on connecting with young audiences crossed an ethical line by marketing stimulants to those same kids. The market responded accordingly. Parents pulled back their spending. Regulators stepped in. The hype machine that had lifted Prime to $250 million in sales turned against them just as powerfully. An industry observer captured it perfectly, calling Prime Energy the meme coin of drinks, its value fed by absurd viral moments rather than fundamental utility. And just like meme stocks and crypto pump schemes, once the momentum shifted, the collapse was brutal and swift. Prime's rise and fall offers crucial lessons for the influencer economy. Parasocial relationships can create enormous initial trust and sales, but that trust is fragile and must be protected. When influencers prioritize short-term revenue over long-term responsibility to their audience, the backlash is swift and merciless. The very network effects that amplify success can destroy you just as quickly. Most importantly, there's a difference between building a brand and riding a wave. Prime rode a wave, the wave of influencer marketing, youth culture, and social media hype. But waves, by definition, crash eventually. Sustainable brands are built on consistent value delivery, ethical practices, and genuine customer benefit. Prime had none of these. It had celebrity, controversy, and caffeine. That was enough for a viral moment, but not enough for a lasting business. The fact that Prime bottles now sit in clearance bins for 31 pence isn't a market anomaly or bad luck. It's the market's final judgment on what the product was actually worth once you stripped away the hype, the scarcity, and the social pressure. 31 pence. That's the real price of a drink that once commanded £100 on eBay. And that ultimately is the most satisfying part of Prime's downfall. Not because we want to see Logan Paul and KSI fail, but because we want to see accountability. We want to see that you can't market potentially harmful products to children and expect to get away with it forever. We want to see that hype without substance eventually gets exposed. We want to see that sometimes, just sometimes, the market gets it right. Prime's story is finished, but its lessons will echo for years in boardrooms and marketing departments around the world. The next time an influencer considers launching a product line, they'll remember Prime. The next time a company considers blurring ethical lines for growth, they'll remember Prime. And the next time parents see a viral product targeting their kids, they'll hopefully remember Prime too. Because in the end, Prime's greatest contribution wasn't a better sports drink. It was a perfect case study in how quickly credibility can be lost, how ethical shortcuts lead to long-term disasters, and how the market eventually corrects even the most hyped products, from $250 million to clearance bins in 24 months. That's not just a business story. It's a cautionary tale for the entire influencer economy. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. Please do consider subscribing to the channel if you found value in this. Oh, and YouTube thinks you will like this video. Do watch it before you leave.